Tylko 34% Polaków, jak podają dzisiaj gazety, jest pewne, że pójdzie do wyborów. To bardzo mało.
Moim zdaniem, ja jestem, prawda, nie jestem demokratą, im mniej ludzi pójdzie do wyborów, tym lepiej. Bo wtedy idą ci, którzy mają jakieś poglądy polityczne. Wie pan, jeżeli pan płynąłby statkiem, to chciałby pan, żeby decydował wszystkim kapitan, czy wolałby, żeby decydowała załoga z pasażerami i pasażerkami włącznie?
Before us here is the new government of Europe, a government that with the Lisbon Treaty now has enormous powers, not just a foreign minister and embassies, not just the ability to sign treaties, but the ability now to use emergency powers to literally take countries over. And yet what we've heard from the European Parliament big group leaders this morning is the demand that you take even more powers and do it even more quickly. And perhaps it's worth reminding ourselves that this treaty that gives this Commission these powers does not have democratic legitimacy in the European Union at all. You ignored referendums, you denied referendums, and you bullied the poor Irish into voting for a second time. Now I'm struck that the common denominator with this Commission is the sheer number of them that were communists or were very close to communism. Mr Barroso himself was a Maoist. Sim Kallas, far from being a student activist, was even a member of the Supreme Soviet, so a top-notch communist we have there. Baroness Ashton ran CND and still refuses to tell us whether she took money from the Communist Party of Great Britain. Now I could go on, but we'd be here for some time. But we have at least 10 communists in this Commission, and it must feel like a return to the good old days. There must be a certain nostalgia amongst the communists. Whilst 60 years ago an Iron Curtain fell across Europe.
Obywatelstwo w Unii. Czy gdyby nie było tego zapisu w traktacie lizbońskim, że istnieje coś takiego jak obywatelstwo Unii Europejskiej, to by się pan...
Unia jako cała koncepcja. Ja głosowałem przeciw i przed referendum też gdzie tylko mogłem, podawałem różne powody, wtedy byłem dobrze przyuczony do tego, teraz to już jest nieważne, bo zostaliśmy wcieleni. Podawałem różne powody, by nie wchodzić do Unii.
Panowie Kaczyńscy mówili, że będą bronili suwerenności, prawda? I głosowali za traktatem lizbońskim. Świętej pamięci Lech Kaczyński, który przecież jest zdrajcą w tym momencie, podpisał traktat lizboński, w wyniku czego nie wiem, państwo zauważyli. Przecież państwo mówią nawet uczciwie, że nie możemy zrobić tego czy owego, bo Bruksela nie pozwoli. No bo od 1 grudnia 2009 Polska już nie jest niepodległym państwem.
Pan mówi zdrajca Lech Kaczyński, ale pierwszy raz o tym, że Bruksela coś nakazuje, to usłyszał pan po traktacie lizbońskim, czy może jednak wcześniej?
Ale przedtem nakazywała, ale można było tego nie wykonać. A po traktacie lizbońskim jesteśmy już zobligowani. To jest to delegę. Ja panu powiem rzecz szokującą. Ja pamiętam jeszcze przed traktatem lizbońskim, na 1,5 roku, na seminarium na uniwersytecie pojawiła się pani sędzina Jung-Nickel, która powiedziała otwarcie, że już wtedy, że sądy będą wyrokowały według Unii Europejskiej, nawet jeżeli to jest sprzeczne z polską konstytucją.
Czyli nadrzędność prawa unijnego nad
tak, ale to jeszcze było przed traktatem lizbońskim. Czyli sądy już nielegalnie wykonywały... Przecież pamięta pan sprawę tego cygana, który zarżnął, zadźgał nastolatka w Brukseli, nie? I wydano go Królestwu Belgii. Otóż przecież konstytucja wtedy jawnie mówiła, no była jeszcze niezmieniona, w artykule 55, że ekstradycja polskiego obywatela jest zakazana. I mimo tego, że taki artykuł był wtedy w Konstytucji, sąd nakazał go wydać. No, chcę powiedzieć jasno, że ci sędziowie, nie prowadzą. Ten sędzia, który to nakazał, w wolnej Polsce pójdzie siedzieć, tak samo jak sędziowie stalinowscy. Wbrew Konstytucji sąd złamał Konstytucję, mimo że jeszcze nie byliśmy w Unii Europejskiej.
Mr. Co-President Nigel Farage, freedom and democracy.
Well, good morning, Mr. Van Rompuy. You've been in office for 1 year, and in that time the whole edifice is beginning to crumble. There's chaos. The money's running out. I should thank you. You should perhaps be the pin-up boy of the Eurosceptic movement. But just look around this chamber this morning. Just look at these faces. Look at the fear. Look at the anger. Poor old Barroso here looks like he's seen a ghost. You know, they're beginning to understand that the game is up, and yet in their desperation to preserve their dream. They want to remove any remaining traces of democracy from the system. And it's pretty clear that none of you have learned anything. You know, when you yourself, Mr Van Rompuy, say that the euro has brought us stability, I suppose I could applaud you for having a sense of humour, but isn't this really just the bunker mentality? You know, your fanaticism is out in the open. You talked about the fact that it was a lie to believe that the nation state could exist in a 21st century globalised world. Well, that may be true in the case of Belgium, who haven't had a government for 6 months, but for the rest of us, right across every member state in this union, and perhaps this is why we see the fear in the faces, increasingly people are saying, we don't want that flag, we don't want the anthem, we don't want this political class, we want the whole thing consigned to the dustbin of history. And we had the Greek tragedy earlier on this year, and now we have the situation in Ireland. Now I know that the stupidity and greed of Irish politicians has a lot to do with this. They should never ever have joined the euro. They suffered with low interest rates, a false boom and a massive... Just who the hell do you think you people are? You are very, very dangerous people indeed. All of the bailout money has gone. There won't be any more. But it's even more serious than economics, because if you rob people of their identity, then all they are left with is nationalism and violence. I can only hope and pray that the euro project is destroyed by the markets before that really happens.
What's your take on David Cameron's withdrawal from the Eurozone agreement?
All this razzmatazz about standing up for the City of London that's gone on in the last couple of weeks is so much political posturing. The regulation of the City of London was passed over in September 2010, and it was voted for, with the exception of UKIP, by all the main parties, the Labour Party, Liberal Democrats and the Conservative Party. They all voted for transfer. So the actual regulation of the City of London went 14 or 15 months ago. So he hasn't saved anything. Nothing will change. Nothing can change. The city is regulated by Brussels, and it has been now for 14 months. So all this kerfuffle and hullabaloo is actually completely, as most things in modern politics are, completely and totally bogus. But it's not in British interest. We don't even have a seat at the World Trade Organization now.
So if you change things, Godfrey, what would you do?
I'd come out of the entire European Union, and I would negotiate the same sort of arrangement as the Swiss have, the Norwegians have, the Turks have, and other countries, and say, look, we want to be friends, we want to trade, but we don't want all your rules and regulations, and we certainly can't afford to send £50 million a day to the European Union when we don't even know where it goes. They haven't signed off their accounts for nearly 16 years. If any of your members did that, they would be watching this in prison.